Thank you. We've got a new sound system and we reckon it's going to work. So hopefully you'll hear a little bit better tonight. But thank you for coming. Thank you for coming because I know that you are interested in getting the most out of your life, and that is a very reasonable request of us human beings. Life should be good. And unfortunately, with many people today, life is not good. So they go to the doctor where we're taught to go, and he gives them a name. Have you noticed that? A name. Well, I'd like to suggest that you reject that name. Reject that name and go home and have a look, because the first thing you look at, so when you're looking at if the body's not working well, the first thing you look at in your body is, what is your history? Does that give you any indication of why something may be happening in your body? And your body telling you where to start is your symptoms. Now, medically, symptoms are treated, but I'd like to say they're not treated, they're silenced. They're silenced. Just because the symptom goes away doesn't mean the body's healed. They're silenced. And Newton's third law of motion states that to every action there is an equal and an opposite reaction. We're going to look at why that symptom is there. A symptom is a voice. A symptom is your body saying, excuse me, can you do something? But most people don't know what to do. And so my book, Sustain Me, is like a handbook on natural remedies. And you can try a few things. And yesterday we looked at a few things. And what you look for is the body's response. A lady came to me today and she said, my little girl had an earache. They just offered antibiotics. I didn't want antibiotics. I tried the onion on the ear. She said, it's a miracle. What does she mean by that? The earache went away. Now, if you have an earache and you take an antibiotic and the earache goes away, it's actually just masking the symptoms. As I showed you last night, my daughter's earache kept coming back, kept coming back, kept coming back. But if you put an onion poultice on it and you get relief, the body's saying, thank you. This is what I need. So to know what to do, you start with your symptoms. Have a look at your history. Maybe that'll tell you why you got a sore knee or a sore ankle or a sore... Something has happened, because nothing happens for no reason. And then the symptom is your body's telling you where to start. That's where you start. And then you try different natural remedies, and your body's response says, yes, this is what I want you today. Your body will guide you in the way that you should go. What I'm going to be talking about tonight is the largest organ in the body. And most people don't realise that our skin is an organ. When we look at our immune system later in the week, I think that's Friday, we're going to be looking how it's the front line of defence. Is the skin. The skin does so many things. The skin breathes. That's why it's so important to be careful what you put on the skin. The fabrics that are touching your skin. The personal care products that are going on your skin. And yesterday we looked at how the biggest pores in the whole of your body are on the soles of your feet. Be careful what the soles of your feet touch. I make sure that what the soles of my feet touch are only natural fibre. In the summer, I live in Birkenstocks, those German health sandals, because it's leather. My feet are on like a suede leather. So the skin absorbs. The skin breathes and the skin absorbs. Let's make a list. The skin breathes, so be careful what you put on the skin, because it breathes. And if you put too much on your skin, it's not going to be able to breathe well. There's the very sad story of a little girl who was painted gold for a play, and she died. Because you can't totally cover the body. You can't totally cover the skin. There's a show in Australia on television called Mythbusters. Do they have Mythbusters here? I'm not a television watcher, but I was at my son's place one day and he had it on, and I was interested because they were going to bust the myth that you can't cover the whole body. So what they did was they started to paint this guy, one of the guys on the show, started to paint his whole body. They got halfway down the body, his blood pressure dropped, he's getting trouble breathing. You know, they had to have people running on the stave, cameramen were running on the stave, peeling this off him. Well, it wasn't a myth, and they didn't bust that one. Because you can't cover every pore in the body. The body will not live. Because, yes, we breathe through our nose into our lungs, but the skin also breathes. And because the skin also absorbs, it's very important to be careful what you're putting on your skin, because it absorbs. That can be good and that can be bad. It can be bad when what's touching our skin is chemicals. Now, we are exposed to enough chemicals not of our choosing today, let alone things that we may be putting into our body that we do not realise. We do not realise the danger. And that's why it's important to know that your skin absorbs. So please, only natural fibre. Keep right away from nap. What's nap? You will not nap or sleep very well if you're sleeping amongst these fabrics. Nylon and acrylic and polyester. I was talking to a lady yesterday who had lovely stripy woolen socks on. She said, unfortunately, they're not 100% wool. She said they're 80% wool and they're 20% polyester. I said to her, well, that doesn't really bother me, as long as it's majority. And sometimes a little polyester or a little elastine gives it a bit of shape. But as long as majority is, someone has made a fortune out of polyester. So it's time to stop buying it. I don't want to spend 1 cent of my money supporting these chemical fabrics. They were created in a chemical laboratory. And there's something else they do. Yes, if they're touching the skin, the skin absorbs it, gets into the blood, and when it gets into the blood, it can start damaging the arterial walls. Let me show you, because this is quite fascinating. So we're going to draw a red arterial wall, and our blood vessels, it's our vascular system, they're lined with little cells called endothelium cells. But covering the endothelium cells are little fibres, tiny, tiny microscopic little fibres, and those little fibres protect the endothelium cells. Now, a high carbohydrate diet, high sugars, what would that be? Cereal and toast for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, pasta for tea, especially if it's all made out of wheat and it's got the sugars in it, maybe pretzels, donuts, cookies, mid-morning, mid-afternoon, high carbohydrate, high sugar diet. What happens is when that gets into the blood, which of course it does, this high sugar in the blood, it starts to wipe out the glycocalyx. And that's the name of those little filaments. wipes out the glycocalyx. Do you know what that means? We've now lost that protective covering. And then the person is maybe wearing nylon, acrylic, polyester next to their skin. Maybe they're washing their clothes with chemicals. And unless you rinse your clothes 10 times, and no washing machine does that, there's still a remnant of that washing detergent in your clothes. And especially when you get hot, when you're exercising today, was a cool day. Well, I think it's cold. Someone said to me today they thought it was quite warm, but I actually think it's quite cool. And we were walking and we got very hot. And when you exercise and you're getting very hot, the pores open. And what's touching your skin, if it's got chemicals in it, they come in. So they now come into the blood. Whether we eat it, whether it touches our skin, it's in the blood. And what those chemicals can now do is start breaking up the endothelium cells. Now I'm about to show you the true cause of heart disease. The true cause of heart disease is that high carbohydrate, high sugar diet wiping out your protective glycocalyx, which is what those little filaments cause. And now the chemicals that so many of us are exposed to, they come in and start damaging. Now when you cut your hand, it starts bleeding, but the bleeding stops. And the bleeding stops because it starts to clot. And the clotting is a result of three things: platelets clumping together, red blood cells clumping together, and fibrin, which is like little threads that binds it together. And now a nice little clot is formed. Whew, what a relief. Isn't that good news? Now it's healing. But the problem is the person stays on the high carbohydrate diet. The problem is the person doesn't realise the dangers of these fabrics, so the damage continues and the clots are building up. The clots are building up. And medicine comes along, takes a biopsy of a clot. They find fat. Do you know why they find fat? Because 50% of the membrane around the red blood cell is fat. So now someone came up with the theory, did you get that? Someone came up with the theory that cholesterol causes heart disease. Huh? Did you hear that? It's a theory. And it's not the only theory. But a company was able to make not millions, not billions, trillions out of this theory. It's the pharmaceutical company with their cholesterol-lowering medication. Yes, that's enough for me not to be interested in it. But can you see where it starts? Yes, the high carbohydrate diet, but the chemicals. How could wearing nylon, acrylic and polyester contribute to heart disease? It's because every chemical gets into the blood. And when it gets into the blood, it starts to damage. And the body responds exactly the same way it responds when you cut yourself. It's the clotting. So let's go back to the skin. It's time to only put natural fibre on the skin. So what is natural fibre? I was talking to a lady today with a little baby, and everything that had the baby had on was made out of fine wool and silk. How nice. That's what we should be dressing our little ones in. That's what we should be dressing in. But I'm going to introduce you to some fabrics that you may not realise are natural fibre. One is viscose. And viscose is made out of bamboo. Another one is rayon. Rayon is made of wood pulp. Modal, M-O-D-A-L, it's the cellulose spun from the birch tree, is modal. So even though these are man-made fabrics, they're made out of wood or bamboo. To soften them, they use chemicals. That is true. So when you buy fabric or clothes made out of these, you need to wash them and hang them on the clothesline because the sun purifies them. If you buy cotton, you've got to wash it before you wear it, because I know in Australia cotton is one of the most sprayed crops. And you've got to wash it and put it on the line. That'll detoxify it. The sun is a wonderful detoxifier. You can Google this brand, Booty. And Booty is underwear, undershirts, leggings, petticoats, all made out of viscose, which again is bamboo. Now it is true it might be only 90% or 95%, the rest is elastine. Otherwise the stockings would fall down and it wouldn't fit you properly. So looking at the skin, it's important to make sure that whatever touches the skin is natural fibre. Yes, wool certainly is a natural fibre, and the more of us people that buy wool, the more wool will be available. When I was in New Zealand, I was alarmed at how the wool industry has really crashed because no one's buying wool. And my driver said to me, it's the same price to buy polyester carpet as it is to buy wool carpet. And I don't know, if you walk barefoot on polyester compared to walking barefoot on wool, I know what I'd prefer. And he said, and if there's a fire in the house, that polyester literally feeds the fire like kerosene. But if the fire's in the house and hits the wool carpet, you know the wool carpet just about puts the fire out. You have a fire, you throw a woolen blanket on the fire, it'll just go out. So I was alarmed to hear that the farmers are using wool around the trees as compost. One lady said, but it's prickly. I said, the coats may be prickly because it's made out of the wool on the back of the sheep. But the wool underneath the neck is soft wool. And that's what they make the underwear out, the long johns for skiing, fine wool. And it is not prickly. So be careful on the clothes that you are wearing. One lady said it's almost impossible to find a bra made out of natural fibre. I said, you're right, but keep looking. And if every lady in this room refused to wear any underwear or sleepwear unless it was made out of natural fibre, I can tell you right now, we ladies will change the industry. Yes, we'll change the industry. Because that we the consumer, is whatever we're buying is what the market will respond. So baby wear, children's wear. A lady said to me, my little girl, she came home from school, she's 9, and she said, Mum, look, my girlfriend gave me this pretty nightshirt, little nightie. And the mother looked at it, looked at the label, oh no, it's polyester. Frowning. How's the little girl feel? She loves her nightie, it's so pretty, and her girlfriend gave it to us. So we don't want to make enemies of our children. We've got to win our children. I said, this is what I'd do. I'd look at it and say, oh, what a pretty nightie. Oh, what a pity. It's made out of chemicals, polyester. I tell you what we'll do. We're going to go to the material shop and you can choose a pretty fine cotton, fine bamboo. There are some beautiful fabrics. And it's worth buying a sewing machine, buy a pattern, go home and make a nightie out of natural fibre. Make 2 so she can give one to her girlfriend. You got to win the children. That's how you win them. Everything that we breathe goes through our blood. Everything that we eat gets into our blood. Everything that touches our skin gets into the blood. So you've got to be very careful of what's touching your skin. Be very careful of what you're putting on your skin. And I know one of our guests, she said to me, Barbara, I'm going to have to throw all my clothes out. I said, well, there's places called second-hand shops where you can get some very nice clothes, just a little cheaper. But little by little, and I know some ladies have said to me, they said, I don't have as many clothes now, but what I've got is quality. And you know those quality clothes, they will last the distance. And as you'll see, I think it's Saturday afternoon, I'll be talking on hormones. These chemical fabrics are contributing to the disruption of hormones. And wow, that is a big subject today. And I have to tell you, there's hardly a person I meet that doesn't have some sort of hormonal imbalance. So these chemicals are having an effect. So be careful what touches your skin because it absorbs. It breathes, it absorbs, and it also is an organ that throws off waste. It throws waste. And I think it's Friday when we look at detoxification. We're going to be looking at the liver and how it detoxifies chemicals or poisons that have come into our body. And as the liver detoxifies it, it throws off waste. And the largest organ of elimination is actually the skin. The skin is an organ of elimination. So at our health retreat, we have a steam sauna every afternoon, and people are perspiring big time. They're perspiring big time because the skin is an organ of elimination. It's also an organ of touch. So it's a sensory organ. That's probably a better word, is sensory. It's a sensory organ. And that can be a lovely thing, and that's one of the many things I did not like about COVID. It stopped people touching each other. You know, touch is a beautiful thing. I used to watch my younger son, William, when he was about 3, and I'd be walking in the supermarket and he'd be sitting in the trolley, and I used to watch him, and he used to touch the people that walked past. He'd just touch them and he'd look at them. It is such a lovely thing, just the touch and the feeling of our fingers. And I've got some good friends who are massage therapists, you know, and as they're massaging over the years, that sensory of the touch, it gives messages to their brain about certain problems that they can feel in their body. And it's a lovely gift to have, and it's a gift that you would be trained in, is the gift of massage. So what I want to look at now is the way these basic laws of health affect the skin. And one is sunshine. The ultraviolet rays from the sun, they hit the skin, and they convert a form of cholesterol just under the skin to vitamin D. And vitamin D is essential in the absorption of calcium in our body. It's essential in the function of every single cell. Now, I do understand that in the winter months here, you don't have a lot of sunshine. If there was no sun's rays coming through the clouds, it'd be like midnight outside. So even when it's overcast, you are still getting some of those sun's rays. But the body can store vitamin D very well. So make sure you get a nice big storage when the sun's shining. We had a very nice day today. It's a good day to get the sun, but the sun has to touch the skin. So pull the shirt up, take the hat off. Yes, you can overdo the sun, there is no doubt about that. And you'll know when you've overdone the sun because you will get burnt. And as we looked at yesterday, if you get sunburnt, then you put the aloe vera on it. And that's very good. But ideally, we don't get sunburn. How much sun do you need? Well, we've got a saying in Australia, how long's a piece of string? It can be a centimetre long, or it can be 10 metres long. It all depends on your skin. If you have blue eyes and fair skin and fair hair, you have to be a little bit more cautious of the sun. So when I go out in the sun on holiday, it does happen sometimes, not much, I lay down to get some sun and I don't have sunscreen. Because have you seen what's in the sunscreen packet? Have you seen the names? You don't even know what those names are, they're so long. You know, the longer the name, the more concerned I get. And when you put the sunscreen on, it's full of chemicals. So what's going to happen now? The chemicals are going to be absorbed through the skin, into the blood. Now they're contributing to damage on the arterial walls. I wonder if anyone's done a study on how much cardiovascular disease has risen since people are using sunscreen. You see, vitamin D is vital in protecting us against disease. Vitamin D is vital in helping to protect those little endothelium cells that line the arterial wall. So when I go out in the sun, I don't have sunscreen. I have this thing on my hand called watch. 15 minutes front, 15 minutes back under the umbrella. And if I do that twice a day, every day, in 5 days, I've got a very nice tan. And when I've got a tan, I can go out into that sun sometimes for a couple of hours. It's your best protection. Now, the ultraviolet rays that hit the skin and are converted to vitamin D are UVB rays. And what sunscreen does is it blocks the UVB rays. So since people have been using sunscreen, vitamin D deficiency has become rampant. So let the sunshine touch your skin. Yes, if you overdo the sunshine, you will get burnt. And the research shows that 6 to 8 sunburns in your lifetime can double your risk of skin cancer. And what they're finding now, Ian Wishart, he's written a few books on this, on vitamin D. He shows the research that sunscreens are actually contributing to basal cell carcinoma. That's the most deadly form of skin cancer. And when someone gets basal cell carcinoma on the inside of their thigh, how much sun does that get? No, it's not the sun. The sun is not the enemy in the sky. The sun is actually the doctor in the sky. So vitamin D deficiency, they're finding, is contributing to skin cancer, and sunscreens are actually causing basal cell carcinoma. Whew. All we have to do is revive common sense. If you've got fair skin, blue eyes, you don't lie out in the sun for hours every day. And if you do, you will suffer because your skin will be so burnt it will blister. And you do that more than 8 times in your lifetime, you will damage the skin so much that it can cause skin cancer. There's no doubt about that. One of the laws of health is moderation. And moderation is a very important point when it comes to sun. And if you have dark skin, you need about 10 times the exposure that I need. And if you've got dark skin, you can stand 10 times the exposure that I can. So dark-skinned people need more. Water. I found this one fascinating. My son-in-law, Matthew, he's a builder. And he said to me, I was out on the job site one day and we were out in the full sun, he said, for 8 hours. And he said, I was just drinking. He's got blonde hair, blue eyes, but he goes quite tanned, drinking. He said, I must have drunk 5 litres of water that day because he was perspiring so much. And the more you perspire, it's not rocket science, is it? The more water you need. He said, I didn't get burnt. He said another day, a couple of weeks later, we're out in the sun again for a lot. But he said, we didn't have enough water. He said, I was burnt at the end of the day. Isn't that interesting? When your skin is well hydrated, you do not burn as easily. And the more you perspire, the more water you need. But we don't perspire pure water, do we? Yes, we perspire waste, but have you ever tasted your perspiration? What is it? Salty. So the more you perspire, the more salt you need. And we need that whole salt. That whole salt, are salts like Celtic salt or Baja salt. Both of these salts are hand-harvested salts, hand-harvested in the old Celtic methods, which means they retain the minerals. And there are 3 magnesiums in those salts, and those magnesiums help to get the water inside the cell. How much water do we need? We lose approximately 8 glasses a day. We actually lose 10 glasses a day. But 2 of the glasses we can account for our fruits, our vegetables, our herb teas. But 8 glasses are necessary to fully hydrate the body. If the body is not well hydrated, the skin can shrink up. And I don't know anyone that wants to get wrinkles early. Now, the wrinkles come. But unfortunately, with a lot of people, they're coming too early. And my sister-in-law, she's a top model, and she's just turned 50. She looks 30. She's very beautiful. You know, genetics loads the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. She's got some genetics there, but if she didn't live the lifestyle, she would have deteriorated a lot earlier. And she contributes or testifies that one of the biggest contributing factor to keeping her skin soft is hydration. Our massage therapists at our retreat, they tell me we can tell when we're massaging the skin, we can tell the people that are dehydrated. The skin doesn't move. It's like it's tough and it's dried a bit, but in a well-hydrated body, that skin moves so beautiful when they're being massaged. So you want to keep your skin beautiful, keep well hydrated. 8 glasses of water a day, start early. That's what I do. I take a glass of water to bed. The first thing I do when I wake up is have a glass. Well, actually I have half a glass. And I go to the bathroom, come back, have another half glass. Then I pray, and then I start another glass. But at the beginning of every glass, I have a little crystal of Celtic salt, about the size of a sesame seed. So can you see what I do after I pray to have another half glass? Then I get dressed, I have another half glass with a bit of salt that time. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm stretching it out. And yes, we went and did our cold dunk again this morning. So by the time I did my cold dunk, I've had about 2.5 glasses of water. I come back, have another half glass. You stretch it out. And ideally, for the sake of digestion, we need to stop half an hour before the meal and resume about an hour and a half after the meal. Sleep. It is while we sleep that our body revives, restores, regenerates while we sleep. So sleep is vital. And if we're not getting enough sleep, we will wake not revived, not restored, not regenerated. I'm still adjusting to your time frame because I've come from the US. So the night before last, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning, wired, ready to go. Tried to sleep, so I woke up at 3:30. So I had 6 hours. Last night, I was in bed by 9:30, woke at 7:30. So I must have caught up my other 2 hours. I had 10 hours sleep last night. Well, I feel that's very exciting. So sleep is vital. And the hours before midnight are the most important. Have you heard the old saying, an hour before midnight is worth 2 hours after midnight? It's an old saying, and the research now is proving it. It's between the hours of 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. that serotonin's released. That's our mood hormone. That our increasing brain function hormones released. But the one I particularly wanted to mention to you is melatonin. Melatonin is the hormone that's released between 9 p.m. 2 a.m. and melatonin increases healing. So the most powerful healing times in the night is between 9 and 2. Unfortunately, because of technology, mostly, many people aren't going to bed till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. They've missed out on most of their melatonin. That's your healing booster. There's another old saying, early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy and wise. All these old sayings, where did the old sayings come from? It was just observed that that was so. But now the science is proving it. So people say to me all the time, how do you handle it? How do you handle this travelling? I found a formula and I'm just explaining the formula to you right now. And a big one is sleep. And lack of sleep is a big contributing factor to dementia and Alzheimer's that we're seeing today. That's usually enough to get people into bed early. I don't know anyone that wants to get Alzheimer's dementia. Let me give you God's perfect mathematical formula. 8 hours to work, 8 hours to play, 8 hours to sleep. Except for children, they need about 10. And the real little ones, they're good on about 12. Trust in God. This takes into consideration the emotional, mental, spiritual aspects of disease. I can assure you that there's one thing that will stop you sleeping, and that's getting annoyed with the fact that you can't sleep. You'll never sleep. And in 1 Thessalonians 5:18, the Bible says, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. So if you can't sleep, you know what you do? You just lie there and list all the things you're thankful for. Thank you so much, Father, that I'm in a comfortable bed. Thank you so much that I'm awake because now I can talk to you. There's always something to be thankful for. One lady said to me, I can't sleep, I can't sleep, I can't sleep. I said, don't say that anymore. She said, why not? I said, every cell in the body's listening, and you know what they're saying? Looks like we can't sleep. The body is very obedient to the mind, and our words affect our mind. So be very careful on what you're saying. She said, well, what will I say? I'm going to try. Remember my daughter that said, I'm going to grow up in a minute, I'm going to sleep in a minute. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. I might not be there yet, but I'm aiming for that. And if you sleep in natural fibre, remember you won't nap very well if you're sleeping in nylon, acrylic and polyester. My daughter bought me a linen 90. I looked like I was out of Little House on the Prairie. My husband didn't think it was very attractive. It's like a sack. But it was nice to sleep in. So look for natural fibre to sleep in. And when you are buying natural fibre, you're supporting the local industry. Someone has made a fortune out of polyester. Every Airbnb I stay in, polyester blankets, polyester sheets. We've even got it in my contract now, Barbara must have cotton sheets. And ideally feather or wool sleeping. Because it'll affect your sleep. You have a look. If you sleep in polyester, you'll sweat because it doesn't breathe. When I was in Scotland last year, my security guy was an ex-Marine. And he said, do you know the Marines all use woolen underwear now? I said, really? He said, yeah, their boxer shorts and their undershirts, 100% wool. Because what they've discovered is it breathes. And they've discovered that because it dries and breathes, they can wear it for nearly 10 days without washing it. Isn't that interesting? Because it's breathing. You might not want to stand next to them, but... And I know myself, I put a woolen garment, the fine wool garment on the line, and a cotton garment on the line. The woolen garment dries in half the time. So please rediscover wool. So when we trust in God, that is, when we say thank you, Father, for what's happening to me, that's a step in trust, a step in faith. You might not like what's happening to you, but when you say thank you, Father, it's a step in faith, because it's basically saying, I don't like it, I don't understand why this is happening, but I trust that out of this great things can happen. Worry, anxiety certainly can keep people awake. And so when you thank God for everything in your life, it can bring you peace. Abstain. There are some things that must stop. There are some things that must stop for your skin to be working as it should. Anything that can go into your body through your skin that is going to be toxic to the body must stop. So especially ladies, have a look at your personal care products. Have a look at what's in your moisturiser, what's touching your skin. When I was in Romania, Transylvania, a few months ago, this guy stood up, he wanted to give his story. He's 40. He said, I used to have lipomas. You know what a lipoma is? Like it's a fatty lump. He said, I had 100 on my body, all over my body. And he said, I've got an identical twin and he's the same. And he said, my wife came home after watching Barbara O'Neill and said, I'm taking control. He said, she threw all my clothes out. He said, now I've just got cotton and linen and maybe some fine wool. And I went to clean the bathroom and all that's there is sodium bicarbonate and white vinegar. He said, and all the food's organic. I'm not allowed to smoke anymore, not allowed to drink, not allowed to have coffee anymore. But he said, my lipomas are gone. He was 40, very fit. He said, I've got about 2 still there. He said, I am so thankful. Because what often happens when chemicals are going into the body, and we will see this when we look at detoxification, the body will look at it and it'll wrap it up in fat and store it. And isn't that interesting? When he got all the chemicals out of his life in areas that he hadn't even thought about, the cleaning products. Notice what's in my laundry cupboard at home: sodium bicarbonate, white vinegar. And I've got a biodegradable washing detergent, and I only use the tiniest bit to wash with. That's all you need. Because washing machines today are so effective. They spin, they rinse, they agitate, they spin. You could almost wash your clothes in water. Hang them on the line. Maybe if it's a big man who's been working in the garden all day and there's a lot of perspiration and dirt, you might want a bit of soap in there. But it's just an illustration to show we do not need much to wash with. I know when I used to work in the veggie garden in 2020, I became the gardener because everything was locked down. And I'd garden for 3 hours every morning in the garden with just a singlet on. I was golden brown. And on the way home, I'd stop at the creek and I'd dive in. Oh, that was so nice. And you know what I'd clean my body with? The fine sand on the bottom of the creek. I'd just wash myself with all of that. Come back nice and clean. What did they do before soap was made? What did they do? Now, yes, I do like soap, but my soap is natural fibre. Be very careful on what's touching your skin. Now, I'm about to mention something else that I'm going to explore even more detail tomorrow, and that is something like eczema, psoriasis, which is certainly a skin condition. Yes, all the chemicals must go. But there are 5 allergen foods which we're going to explore in more detail tomorrow. And I have found that when these are stopped, the skin clears. Dairy is a common allergen. Wheat was hybridised in the 1950s, and tomorrow when we look at eczema, I'm going to explore that in more detail. Oats are commonly, they contain a plant chemical called lectins. I don't know if you've heard of lectins, but lectins increase inflammation. Any inflammatory condition, these are best stopped. Peanuts are often contain mould. You see, peanuts are not a nut, they're a ground legume. And when they're stored in the silo and you got a cool, frosty morning and a hot, sunny day, you got mould growth build up, and they're particularly susceptible to it. And refined sugar is like pouring kerosene on a fire with any inflammation. And we have seen many heal by stopping these foods. If you don't have eczema, if you don't have any skin problems, you could probably eat some of those now and then. But if you have a skin problem, no matter what it is, no matter whether it's rosacea, whether it's psoriasis, whether it's eczema, any form of itching, those foods must stop. But we will explore that more tomorrow when we look at allergies. Allergies can be to a few things, but one of the ones I have noticed is these foods. Does that mean the person can't ever eat that food again? Not necessarily. It's just until they conquer the problem. When you've got a problem, you've got to take steps to stop anything that may be contributing to it. And as we just mentioned, overdoing the sun. Most people today underdo the sun, but you certainly can overdo the sun. We've just got the right amount of sun. And your skin colour and your eye colour, and your skin will quickly tell you if you're out there too long, because it will burn. But in Australia, the sun is being painted as public enemy number one. And we're going to explore that even more tomorrow when I look at bones, because vitamin D is essential for the assimilation of calcium. So we're seeing a lot of osteoporosis. And part of that is lack of vitamin D. Because in Australia, the sun's been hailed as the enemy. It's almost as if you get out in the sun, you're going to get burnt. We had one guest, she said, I had a skin cancer on my cheek. She said it was cut out, now I've got a big scar. She said, when I go outside to hang the clothes on the line, I have a hat, I have sunglasses, I have gloves on. She doesn't even let the sun touch her. But people have been out in the sun for centuries. It's only really since the Industrial Revolution that skin cancer has become so big. What happened in the Industrial Revolution? Well, they created a lot of chemicals. It is estimated that we are exposed to 100,000 new chemicals every year. And I might have shown you this evening some of the areas you might not have even realised that even in our fabrics it's coming through. Because the skin breathes, the skin absorbs. So anything that touches it goes into the body, and if it's chemicals, it starts to do its damage. Inhale through the nose. In Genesis 2 verse 7, the Bible says that God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and he became a living soul. Notice where God breathed, not mouth. This wasn't mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. This was nose. And what nose does is it purifies the air, it humidifies the air, it warms the air, it balances blood gases, and it pressurises the air, making it perfect for the lungs. Mouth does not do any of that. And I was reading the report of some dentists that are claiming mouth breathing is causing tooth decay because you've got dirty air coming into the mouth. And if you're not sure what you're breathing through the night, and you want to ensure that you're nose breathing while you sleep, you can buy mouth tape. you won't die. Now, you don't have to tape the mouth up like that. You can get a small amount of tape from under your nose to your chin. So if you really need to, you can get a little bit from the side. Just about all snoring and stop. Sleep apnea it greatly reduce just from changing from mouth to nose breathing. So what I suggest is that you wear the tape on your mouth like that for 1 hour a day. And after 1 week, there's a pathway in your brain that says, it's all right, we know what she's doing or he's doing. Your brain will get used to that. And you put that tape on overnight. In fact, my little granddaughter, Sophia, she is the daughter of my son, Peter, who's right into breath work. And he said that, he loves James Nestor's book, Breath. It's a fascinating book. But my little granddaughter was staying with me for the holidays last year. She said, Nana, I've got a cold. Can you get me some tape? She said, just get me masking tape. She's 9. So I got a masking tape and she just taped her whole mouth up. She said, it'll keep my nose clear while I sleep. She's got a cold. The best way to clear the nose is to breathe through the nose. Anyway, I laid her down into bed and she's smiling with her mouth all taped up. Didn't hear from her all night. Woke up in the morning, took the tape off. She said, that's better. Isn't that interesting? She's 9 and she's worked it out. And that encourages nose breathing. And when we're getting enough oxygen at the cellular level, so let me show you at the cellular level what happens. Here's the cell. And when you think about it, we are just a bunch of cells. And what I'm about to draw for you, we have 75 trillion of these. You see, we have 100 trillion cells in the body, 25 trillion. So 25 trillion are our red blood cells. And our red blood cells, remember, are the carriers. So the red blood cells are the carriers of oxygen. They're the carriers of, and believe it or not, they're not just getting oxygen through the nose, they're getting some through the skin. Remember, the skin breathes. They're carrying nutrients, and we are the ones that choose what the nutrients are. They're carrying water, and they're taking away waste. Our human body is a living machine, and whenever you've got machinery, you've got waste products. So that's all a very important part of it, and the blood brings all of these to the cell. When the glucose goes into the cell, it goes through a 20-step pathway, and then it goes into an 8-step pathway. This 20-step pathway, it gives us 2 units of energy, but the 8-step pathway gives us 36 units of energy. So what makes the difference? It's oxygen. What a difference oxygen makes. This pathway, no oxygen. So when you're breathing through your nose, you're getting 18% more oxygen into the cell. And when you get oxygen in that cell, you get 18 times more energy. What a difference oxygen makes. So if every single one of your skin cells is well oxygenated, it's going to be working so much better. So make sure you breathe through your nose. I'm going to have to rub moderation out. It's not that it's not important, it's just that I didn't give enough room to write the next law. And the next law is nutrition. And our skin needs to be nourished for it to be working well. And the three essential food groups, what does essential mean? Body doesn't make it, you've got to put it in. What are the three essential nude groups? Fibre, that's all your fruits and vegetables, all your plant foods are high in fibre. And fibre is necessary for the sweeping of our colon. Fibre is necessary because it slowly releases the glucose. So great for people balancing blood glucose levels. But it's in the fibre part of food where you will find most of your minerals. And as you'll see tomorrow when we look at bones, our bones are made of minerals. Protein is the building blocks to our body. You cannot function without protein. You cannot heal without protein. So my protein as a plant-based lady comes from legumes. Legumes are lentils, chickpeas, lima beans, black-eyed peas, lentils, nuts. I try and have some nuts every meal. Seeds, pumpkin seed, sesame seed, chia, flaxseed. These are also excellent sources of fats. It was probably in about the 1960s, 70s that fat phobia overtook the planet. Because the public were told that fat causes heart disease. But did you know it's never been proven? It's never been proven. And what happened, especially when ladies stopped eating any fat, their skin started to dry out. So they spent a fortune on moisturisers. And they put the moisturisers on the dry skin, and within half an hour it's dry again. Our skin is an illustration of the nutritional status of our body. And when we're getting lots of fibre with all of its minerals, when we're getting adequate protein, I try and eat legumes, nuts and seeds just about every meal. And we're getting good fats. So my breakfast this morning was, I had an apple, and I also had another fruit. I'm trying to think what it was. It's an orange one. They're ripe now. Persimmon. And I had Brazil nuts, and I had almonds, and then I had a slice of sourdough spelt toast. And then I put about half a teaspoon of olive oil on it, and then I put lots of cayenne pepper on it, and then I piled up the avocado and put the Celtic salt on top. Very nice. So you can see I'm getting protein in the nuts, in the seeds. I'm getting protein in the sourdough spelt bread. And my fats are in the olive oil. One lady said, "Barbara, what moisturiser do you put on your skin?" I said, nothing. But you know what I do? I add good amounts of fats, and that will keep the skin nourished. I do acknowledge that some people have been born with drier skin. I have not. I do not have dry skin. So certainly genetics can play a role. But remember, genetics loads the gun. It's lifestyle that pulls the trigger. Even if you have a genetic weakness, it still can be managed with the right lifestyle. So keep your skin well nourished by feeding it the right foods, feeding it the best foods. We looked at moderation in all good things. There are some things that must stop, which we have looked at in abstain, and there are some things that should be done in moderation. Don't overdo the nuts. I have a friend who overdid the nuts. She had a whole kilo of nuts one day, and then she got an allergy. Well, that's not a surprise, is it? I think it would be very sad to get an allergy to nuts. We should be having about 8, my size, about 8 nuts. Maybe a 6'6" guy can have about 10, 12 nuts every meal. How many people have no nuts for a month, then buy a packet of cashews and eat the whole lot in the afternoon? They either overdo it or underdo it. Just have a few every meal. I think it's a lovely dessert to a meal to have a handful of nuts. Nuts are an excellent source of protein, excellent source of fats, and yes, they even have some fibre in it. So moderation in all the good things, moderation in sun. I never have to tell people to be moderate in water. Most people don't drink enough water. Sleep, be careful on your sleep. Don't overdo it and don't underdo it. The last law is exercise. What exercise does is increases the circulation of the blood to the skin. And when you increase the circulation of the blood to the skin, you're increasing oxygen to the skin, you're increasing nutrients to the skin, you're increasing water to the skin. And notice when you exercise, you perspire. We were certainly walking quite fast through the forest today, and when I got back, I had to have a shower. I said to my walking partner, I wish there was a lake near here. I'm so hot and sweaty. That's a lovely time to do a cold dunk, but we didn't find one. So I went home and had a hot and cold shower. That's waste coming out of your skin. And as you'll see when we look at detoxification, especially living on planet Earth today, we are exposed to so many chemicals. But we live in a self-cleaning organism. And when we give the body the right conditions, and part of those conditions is definitely having adequate water. So drinking water allows us to perspire more effectively. And remember, when we perspire, we're losing more salt, where we need that little bit of salt. When you give the body right conditions, it works very well. So if someone says to me, how do you handle this lifestyle, Barbara? I was in US last week, I'll be in Dubai next week. How do you handle it? I said, I found a formula, here it is right here. And it's a formula that works. So no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, I'll look for a way to exercise, because the movement is life. And regarding skin, exercise increases the circulation of the blood to the skin. And what they have found is that when you increase the circulation of the blood to the skin, it slows down aging. Isn't that good news? That's something attractive to everyone over the age of 25. So please look after your skin. It's a fascinating organ, it's an interesting organ, and it works well when you look after it.